Now at Mr. Ohno, I was very lucky to find both and be able to publish their books in English. And I met Ohno many times because I was publishing his books in English. And Ohno, of course, got turned on by looking at an American supermarket and seeing Mrs. Housewife going to the shelf, taking some items off, and then the supermarket very quickly replaced the items. That's where he got the idea of just in time. So, he then began to look at, he would teach then for people to look at a river. He would teach people to look at a river. And he said, a river is like inventory. And the river covers up all the rocks. And inventory covers up all the problems in a manufacturing facility. And he would say, I want you to just lower the water. Reduce the inventory. If you have 100 pieces, cut it down to 80 and see what happens. And see what problems come up, and then you address them one by one. Shinga Ohno was also famous, of course, for his Ohno Circle. When he would ask a manager, especially a supplier who wanted to work with Toyota, Ohno would say, I want you to stand in the middle of your plant for 8 hours, all day long, and just look. I want you to find waste. I want you to see what's happening in the plant. He says, you can go to the bathroom and you can sit here and have lunch, but I want you to stay here all day and I'll come back. And it's amazing what you could see just by watching. I used to take a number of study missions to Japan, and every time I went, Ohno was nice enough for me to visit Toyota. And one day I turned to Ohno and I said, you've been very nice to me and my group, but you're always letting us visit only an old plant. We don't see any new Toyota plants. And Ohno said, Norman, you don't understand just in time. Because just in time has nothing to do with the way a plant looks. It's how efficiently it's run. Another time I'm in one of Ohno's plants, and I see a woman working on 60 hoses, and I was confused because he's teaching one-piece flow. So I said to him again, I don't understand you doing 60 hoses at the same time. And he said, Norman, you don't understand just in time. We're doing what's necessary to be done. Another time I go to Ohno and I said, Ohno, how did you discover just in time? Really, where did it come from? Beside that supermarket idea, he laughed and he said, Norman, I learned everything from Henry Ford. Henry Ford wrote a book in 1908 called Today and Tomorrow. So I came back from Japan. I called my library, and I said to the library in Greenwich, Connecticut, can you find a copy of that book, Today and Tomorrow, by Henry Ford? And the librarian found one. And I read it. I was fascinated with it. And I called Doubleday, the original publisher, back in 1908, and I said, can you give me the reprint rights? Now, it's funny because I didn't need it. The copyright was gone. But I play fair in everything I do. And they said, okay. I think I gave a commission of about 10%. And it was so easy to reprint the book because everything was done. I didn't have to edit it, nothing. And so I printed the book and eventually sold, I don't know, 35,000 to 50,000, 35,000 copies again. Very similar to Shingo's book, 35,000 copies. I sold the book at $35 a book. I made $1 million from Mr. Ohno. And I feel very guilty because I never gave him a commission. I mean, I did give him a royalty on all of his books. One day, Ohno, standing out of a warehouse. This is at Toyota Gosei. He was made chairman of Toyota Gosei when he stepped out of Toyota. And looked at the warehouse and said, at Toyota, we don't have any warehouses. I would like you to get rid of the warehouse. I want you to retrain everybody there to be a mechanic. I want you to make that building into a machine shop. He says, I'll give you 1 year to do it, and he walked away. That was the interesting power of Ohno. He never told people how to do it, never told them how to do it. He just asked for the impossible. I mean, he pretty much says, if I don't ask, they'll never do it. And I never know what they're capable of doing unless I demand. He would go over to a manager and say, you are running your department with 10 people. I want you to do it with 7. He says, I'll come back in 3 months to see how you've done. Now, they were petrified. They were so scared of Ohno. But what could they do? He'd come back 3 months and they were running the department with 10. He never told them how to do it. He just demanded that they do it. Another thing he did, which I thought was amazing, is once it took him many years to perfect just-in-time within Toyota. And then he said, in order to make it work, the suppliers have to do it. So he got a hold of the 10 top suppliers. Nippon Denso was one. Taiho Kogyo was another. Toyota Gosei was another. Asian Saiki. There are a number of top-tier suppliers to Toyota. And he got them to give him one manager from each company. And he said to these managers, full-time now, you're working within this group. And your job is to convert not only your own company, but all 10 companies. You're going to work together. He says, I'll help you. And each month, you'll meet with Dr. Shingo. And they did. And these top 10 people working together became amazing just-in-time engineers. Many of them became very famous. Through 3 of them, I brought to America. They formed a new company called Shinji Jitsu. Man named Wada, Nikao. And they ran here something initially called it 5 days and 1 night. And they called it, somebody else called it Kaizen Blitz. You might be familiar with the Kaizen Blitz. It was the most powerful event I've ever seen. In 1 week, we moved 50 machines. We had 50 managers on the factory floor of Jake Brake, a Danaher company. We made total chaos. It was so bad that they fired the plant manager, George Konuseker. But a few months later, the plant became the most productive one that Danaher had. It was so magical. Danaher made so much money, so much inventory was taken out of that plant, that Danaher took the cash and started to buy other companies and do the same thing running those Kaizen blitzes. Back then, about 1990, Danaher was a $2 billion company. Today it's close to $20 billion. They just kept taking the cash and buying more and more companies. My biggest mistake is that I didn't buy stock in Danaher. Lastly, I thought I would talk to you about, the other thing of Ohno, which I think is very important, is Ohno established these 7 ways. You're all familiar with the 7 ways. We've come up with 33 different tools or more to do just-in-time, and there are very few companies in the world knowing how to do just-in-time. Ohno concentrated on the 7 ways, period. He looked at the waste of motion. He videoed every single worker and tried to eliminate motion. He looked at transportation. He looked at inventory. He looked at the way the process was being done. He looked at defect. And that was the focal point, to absolutely eliminate those non-value adding wastes. I sort of claim two additional ways. One, the underutilization of people's talent, I call the 8 ways. That to me is the biggest waste. Not using people properly. You in Holland had an amazing concept at Volvo called social technical design, where you had people making subsets of the whole car. That's wonderful. Toyota doesn't do that. Even at Toyota, you'll watch a worker having a takt time maybe of 2 minutes. Imagine doing the same thing over and over again, takt time of 2 minutes. That's not really giving people respect. I like what's being done at Volkswagen and BMW, where the workers taught how to be a master, and they work up on a subset. They might have a takt time maybe of 30 minutes.